Hello and welcome to the Global BIM Summit. This is the pre-event webinar series. My name is Adam Matthews. I lead the international program for the Centre for Digital Britain. I'm delighted to be your host for this event, which is brought to you by the Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office and the UK's Construction Innovation Hub. We have today a great first webinar series to kick off this series, to learn more about what is happening in national BIM programs around the world. First of all, though, I would like to direct you towards the translation option. At the bottom of your screen, you'll notice there's an interpretation option, and you can select the language that you would prefer. This is delivered in both English and Spanish, and you'll need to switch if you'd like to listen in the preferred language of your choice. We have a global audience today. In terms of registrations, we have attendees from around 50 countries that are signed up. So this is a global event, and this is building up to the Global BIM Summit, which will be held on the 17th of March. More about that in a moment or two. So let's begin. Building information modeling is at the heart of a digital transformation of the global construction sector. Governments are placing increasing importance around digitalization, the value that it brings to projects, to people and places, and they're taking actions to help encourage that digitalization in different countries and across regions. There's a tremendous amount of collaboration which is also occurring, and that's part of why we're bringing this series together, to build on that increasing collaboration of governments from across regions and to share the big picture of those developments with you. Today is the first in a series of webinars. This is the first one of 4 webinars in which we'll be giving that picture at the national level, the program level. We'll introduce you to the people that are involved at the heart of these national BIM programs, and we'll build up to that Global BIM Summit on the 17th of March. I'm pleased to introduce you to today's speakers. I'm going to actually ask them to turn their cameras on as well. First of all, we'll be hearing from Fergus Harradence from the UK government, and then we'll be hearing from Jan Zar from Estonian government, and finally Valentina Sarmiento from the Ministry of Housing in Colombia. We're going to listen to their presentations first of all, and then we'll have a Q&A discussion at the end of that to reflect on some of those presentations and hear their thoughts as to their experiences and what's good next. With that, I'm now going to ask if I could hand over to Fergus. Thank you very much. It's good to see you all. We'll speak later on. I'm now going to hand over to Fergus to hear about the UK's National BIM programme. Fergus, over to you.
Good day, everyone. It's an honour and a pleasure to be able to speak at the first Global BIM Summit and to have the opportunity to talk about the UK's BIM journey over the past decade. BIM has already transformed the way we in the UK design and deliver infrastructure and construction projects, helping the UK to save money, reduce carbon emissions, and improve health and safety outcomes whilst delivering better built assets for the public that pays for them. But we've only just started to realise the potential of BIM to drive improvements in the construction industry or to contribute to the wider digitisation of the built environment and the benefits that that can deliver. So if I could start by talking about the journey that the UK has gone on over the past decade. Since the publication of the UK Government's 2011 Construction Strategy, improving information management through BIM has been central to our approach to delivering government-funded infrastructure and construction projects. The 2011 Construction Strategy included the policy commitment that BIM Level 2 be used on all government construction projects from 2016, and this is widely referred to in the UK as the BIM mandate. To support central government departments and their supply chains with the implementation of BIM, the UK BIM Task Group was formed by the Department for Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy, working with industry through the Construction Industry Council. Through making information management at BIM Level 2 mandatory for all government construction projects from 2016, the government has to date saved billions of pounds worth of public money. This approach has also helped us to improve the performance of the buildings we procure, minimise their environmental footprint, and improve health and safety outcomes through better planning and better modelling of risks. In 2017, custodianship of the UK BIM programme was transferred to the Centre for Digital Built Britain and incorporated into the UK's wider digital programme, which is supported through the UK Industrial Strategy Challenge Fund, which supports the UK Construction Innovation Hub. The implementation of BIM across government projects, from delivery through to operational handover, has been facilitated by the adoption of a government soft landings protocol, which has resulted in greater collaboration, productivity improvements and efficiency in the design and delivery of construction projects in terms of both social and economic infrastructure. To ensure the benefits of effective information management are shared across England, Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland, the Home Nations Working Group was formed in 2018. It brings together the 4 UK national BIM programmes to develop a consistent approach to BIM implementation. The BIM Home Nations Working Group offers a collaborative forum to share and learn lessons in how government programmes can support the implementation of BIM. This also supports members' strategic objective of increasing the use of BIM by the public sector, and that this is aligned with and follows industry best practice. The Public Sector ISO Transition Working Group aims to build on public sector BIM adoption to date through enabling government departments and agencies to collectively plan and deliver a consistent transition to the new ISO 19650 BIM standard. The group helps to provide for a consistent use of terminology, understanding of information management processes and technologies, and a better approach to procurement of these, which in turn helps suppliers to provide efficient delivery of information-related services. And this aims to deliver the aim of being able to use this information to ensure quality outcomes, accurate records, and enabling better informed and more timely decisions to be made. Infrastructure and construction is a global business, and all countries face common challenges which BIM can address, such as the need to adapt to climate change. Therefore, the UK has always believed that there is a strong case for international BIM standards, and we know that there's been considerable international interest in the work the UK has done on BIM across Latin America, Asia, Africa, and from some of the multilateral institutions. So the UK petitioned the International Standardisation Organisation to develop an ISO BIM standard series which draws on the existing and emerging UK BIM methodology, recognising the global interest in the work the UK has done, to the full integration of British, European and international standards within our own standards and guidance. Collectively, the 3 entities are developing a single set of guidance to support industry understanding of BIM standards and their implementation. The UK BIM framework sets out the approach for implementing BIM in the UK using the framework for managing information provided by the ISO 19650 series. It includes the published standards to implement BIM in the UK BIM guidance framework, and links to other useful resources that organisations can use to help them to achieve implementation. It's also important that BIM is used by local government within the UK, as local authorities here spend around £25 billion a year on capital projects, and they engage with a large number of firms within the construction supply chain. Therefore, they are essential to delivering the transition of the UK's built environment to innovative and digital ways of working. The Local Authorities Group, which is supported by the Centre for Digital Built Britain through the Construction Innovation Hub, strives to tackle the myths about BIM and some of the practical obstacles experienced by local authorities as they try to adopt this technology. The group aims to raise awareness of what BIM is, how it can be introduced into business processes, and what benefits it can provide. The group has also published a white paper on the barriers and issues surrounding the adoption of BIM by local authorities and what mitigations they can use to overcome these. It's also provided a roadmap for adoption and tools and other forms of guidance for the use of local authorities. As BIM has become established in the UK, we've also faced the challenge of ensuring the interoperable exchange of information. Interoperability is pivotal to delivering the whole life beneficial outcomes of BIM to all parties through providing a means of information transfer between different proprietary technologies. Interoperability secures beneficial outcomes not just for clients who own, operate and maintain assets, but for the whole construction industry. The UK established the BIM Interoperability Expert Group to address this issue through a programme of 7 technical work streams of industry experts aiming to bridge the gap between strategic aspirations and practical delivery. The report of the expert group was published in April 2020 and identified the need to find better solutions to enable the appropriate and timely exchange of information and the transfer of this between systems, for example, from delivery phase information models to asset management systems. And it also proposed a set of changes in the way that information is generated, processed and stored in order to facilitate this. I would now like to turn to the future and end by talking about the UK's vision for BIM and how this will support the wider transformation of the built environment. BIM is a critical enabler of the future. It will underpin our information management framework, the set of protocols and standards for the gathering and exchange of information by built assets that will facilitate the UK national digital twin. It is also an essential technology in supporting the future of construction, both the use of off-site manufacturing and in future, the adoption of product platform-based approaches to construction that will utilise common components across many different building types. So there is a continuum between BIM and other technologies that can improve economic, social and environmental outcomes. And as we take forward our ambition to implement these technologies, we will continue to support the evolution of the UK BIM framework and work to deliver interoperability across BIM technologies. The UK's BIM journey of the past decade has seen us make enormous progress in embedding this technology within infrastructure and construction delivery in the UK and building the capability of the public and private sectors in the UK to use BIM effectively. BIM is and will be essential to the UK government's approach to infrastructure delivery, and its continued development and implementation is a vital enabler of our national objectives of achieving net zero carbon by 2050 and recovering from the economic impacts of COVID-19. But we are yet to realise the full potential of BIM or of wider digitisation of the built environment, and the BIM journey of the next 10 years promises to be even more interesting and exciting than it's been over the past decade. And this time, I think it's going to be a global BIM journey that the UK undertakes in partnership with other countries. Thank you.
Great, thanks very much, Fergus. A couple of really key ideas there we'd like to come back to. First of all, you mentioned about the importance of this to the industrial strategy, which we'll pick up in the discussion later. And you also mentioned about the skills piece, the enabling aspect of this for you from a UK government perspective. So again, another topic to come back to. I'd like to now hand over to Jan. Jan Zar from the Estonian government is going to provide us an overview as to how their national BIM programme is going and how it fits into the broader Estonian digital plan that they have. So over to you, Jan. Thanks.
Hello, it is a pleasure to be here in front of you at the Global BIM Summit pre-event to introduce what Estonia is doing regarding BIM and digital construction. My name is Jan Saag, and I'm the head of digital construction for Ministry of Economic Affairs and Communications here in Estonia. And I will tell you a little bit about what we are doing regarding the digitization of the construction industry. But before that, I would like to say a few words about Estonia. As this is a global event, not all of you might be familiar with Estonia, a small country in Europe, and we have been called the most advanced digital society in the world. We have most of our state services already online. We do our taxes online, we vote online, and we also have a fully digital building permit system already established. And this is in many ways thanks to the e-identity and digital signature system we have implemented already nationwide. And as you can see here on the slide, it saves us a stack of paper the height of the Eiffel Tower every month. So it's difficult to calculate, the exact benefits of all of this e-government and digitization, but through some calculations, it saves us at least 2% of our whole GDP. But coming now more closely to the construction industry, and also from there to BIM, we have established this year a strategic document with a long-term view for the construction sector. And there are 7 key steps, 7 key principles there. And today I'm going to talk about, and what we're focusing on, is the efficient and innovative construction. And this is where BIM and digitization fall under. As you can see, it's part of a larger program, a larger scheme to tackle the low productivity of the construction industry. And a very strong tool in our arsenal or our toolbox is digitization. And we call this program the e-construction platform. And what the e-construction platform is, it's something that enables lossless exchange of standardized and trustworthy data between all stakeholders throughout the building lifecycle. Usually when we talk about construction digitization, we talk about BIM, but we are not focused only on BIM. We look at a much larger picture, and when we were setting up this program in the end of 2018, we did an analysis, a study within the industry, together with many, many stakeholders, to define what is the key problem, the issue facing our industry. And information management came out as one of the most difficult and problematic things. And that is why the government has taken the initiative to start developing a platform to connect data and services throughout the built environment. And it's not for digitization because of digitization's sake. It's because we need better data to make better decisions. And we also want to make, with this development of the e-construction platform, BIM business as usual, because it's relying a lot on what BIM has to offer. The goal is also to make public services more efficient and transparent. But above all, and the most interesting part for me, is that with the development of the platform and the development of the public services, we are opening it up to totally new digital products and services from also the private industry. And we are releasing this platform or developing it incrementally. And you can find out more information on the website below there on the slide. But I will use a few minutes to explain the platform in a different way, in more detail. So here you have a classic view of an information system. And in this case, it's the building registries view. Below, you have the databases, the data layer. In the middle, you have services, which are represented by the blue bars. And on top of that, you have the user interface. And here we have, as you can see, building registries services. And building registry is the national system which contains the most important information about buildings, and it's fully digital. And this is where also all the building permits, usage permits, etc., construction notices go through. And we've already separated, these services into different blocks. And our new e-construction platform is based on principles of microarchitecture, which enables us to develop each service individually. and they communicate with each other via APIs. So this is a very flexible way and a very agile way to develop information systems, and how it's done with practically any modern information system. And when we're talking about now the development of the e-construction platform, it's not only about existing building registry services. We are bringing in new services with new user interface layers. In this case, we're talking about creating a utility network database, a fully 3D utility network database for the whole country. We are also implementing BIM in the building permit application process. And this is something, totally new to a lot of municipalities. We are also developing the digital twin for Estonia. A lot of the focus is on the visual twin to bring all the information together so you can make decisions faster and they would be easier to comprehend the vast amount of data. And this means we're connecting a lot of different registries, also the road registry, planning registry, etc., land board. And we're not creating a super database. We are creating actually a distributed network. The whole e-government of Estonia is based on a distributed network principle where we don't bring everything in one database, but we connect several systems, several databases. And this is exactly the same principle we're applying to the e-construction platform. And we're also moving beyond the scope of our ministry, and we are dealing with a lot of other ministries and public institutions and helping to bring their services on the same platform. And now the pink bars you see at both ends of the spectrum represent the potential for new private sector services to emerge on this platform as well. And if you think about it, the platform itself is not something huge. It's not some big information system that we're developing and which will be finished at one point or another. It's actually a set of agreements, and it is formed based on this service layer or between this service layer. And the agreements are basically that we follow a common IT architecture. We use a common language when we're describing the built environment. So this is where standards play a really important role. And we also adopt a common philosophy that we agree to share data. And we are opening up our services for others. So this is kind of a very high-level overview of the e-construction platform, what it is about and how we are developing it. So it consists of private, mainly at first public services, but is also open to private services as well. And when we're talking about standardization, then with the e-construction platform, we hope to utilize a lot of the international already established standards in BIM, in digital construction, namely IFC and OpenBIM. So when we're talking about BIM-based building permits, we are developing this system, this service, to work only with IFC and OpenBIM formats. In addition to that, we're also adopting Construction Classification International, which is a classification system based on ISO 12006 and 81346. You can find out more at ccicollaboration.org. There's a picture of the ISO 12006 classification framework, and CCI covers a part of it. And this is something we've developed and teamed up with several other countries like Denmark, Czechia, Poland, Lithuania, and also Sweden to some extent, to try to adopt a common language for construction, how to exchange data. And of course, we have BIM requirements for public procurement. They're not mandatory in Estonia, but we are helping to develop from the ministry side the standard and to establish it as well based on best practices and of course ISO 19650 as well. And to sum it up, the current actions or focus in Estonia is right now from the Ministry of Economic Affairs and Communications, who is responsible for the legislation and the regulatory framework for construction in Estonia, but we are also directly responsible for managing the building registry and related services. And we're now expanding the existing offering into the e-construction platform. So it's becoming something a lot bigger, but at the same time, it's more open for others to join, and it will enable access to new data and make it very easy to do that through different systems, through APIs. And the focus is on creating a digital twin above and below ground. That's the utility network database I mentioned before. We are developing BIM-based building permits. So for the first time, we're bringing BIM into the building permitting process into the hands of the municipalities. And I think that's going to be a real killer app for BIM, actually. And standardizing the built environment data is one of our focuses as well, because we cannot enable any of these platform services if we are not using some form of common language and some form of common way to describe different elements of the built environment. And the challenges, of course, starting from the standards, is that they're not that widely used, adopted. So we are still in the process of establishing them, but I'm happy to say that the market is very much eager to join us and to actually start using these standards. Of course, smaller municipalities, they don't have much experience, they don't have much resources to invest in educating themselves about BIM. So, and that's why we are very much adopting the principle of KISS, keep it stupid simple. When we're developing our building registry and the building permit process based on BIM, it has to be simple and easy to use. Intuitive is the key word, because we are bringing this solution, we're bringing BIM to a lot of people who haven't had experience with that before. But thanks to technology developments, you can do everything in a browser. It can all be integrated into a very fluent system. And of course, one big challenge is the collaboration across different government entities. As I mentioned, we are working with a lot of other ministries, public procurers, and different departments, let's put it that way, of the government, the road department, the land board, the planning department, etc. So this is a huge collaborative effort to really bring this fragmented industry together. And of course, we have very good support from the private sector, especially through the digital construction cluster. But with that, I would like to thank you, and I wish you a great rest of the summit.
Thanks, Jan. That was really helpful, really clear, and interesting about your comments there of working with industry. You mentioned that, how important that's been for you. You also mentioned at the beginning about the challenge of information management being one of the most problematic issues in the research that you'd done, and that was really your focus. So I think we'll like to return back to that later on in the Q&A. You also mentioned the value of information at the heart of everything you do, really that idea of better decisions being informed by good quality information. So again, a really important topic that the Estonian government has focused on, and we'll come back, as I said, to those questions in a moment or two. So thank you. But first, we'll now hear from Valentina Sarmiento from the Ministry for Housing in Colombia. I'm going to hand over to Valentina, then we will have a Q&A with everybody together. Over to you, Valentina.
Hola, muy buenos días. Mi nombre es Valentina Sarmiento Buitrago. Yo soy coordinadora de productividad del Ministerio de Vivienda y es un honor para mí estar acá representando a Colombia en el Pre-Event Series del Global BIM Summit. Mi idea acá es presentarles a ustedes cómo desde el Gobierno Nacional y desde la política pública hemos abordado la implementación de BIM. Primero que todo hay que tener en cuenta que hay un factor de gobernanza muy importante en el que principalmente 4 entidades nos hemos encargado de construir una estrategia nacional. Estamos el Ministerio de Vivienda, el Ministerio de Transporte, el Departamento Nacional de Planeación y la FDN para construir este marco global, pero nos hemos apoyado también en otras entidades, tanto públicas como privadas, con el fin de fortalecer esta estrategia al máximo. También tenemos una enorme ayuda por parte del gobierno británico y Mott McDonald, que nos han apoyado sobre todo con las lecciones aprendidas sobre cómo abordar esta estrategia y cuál es la mejor manera de hacerlo. ¿Cuál fue nuestra primera aproximación en cuestiones de estrategia? Que la transformación digital en el sector de la infraestructura y la construcción debe permitirnos hacer un mejor uso de los recursos y tener una mayor productividad de aquí al 2026. Esto siguiendo 3 objetivos principales. Consistencia a través de un marco colaborativo BIM, eficiencia, esperando que al menos el 10% tengamos un ahorro del 10% en proyectos de infraestructura a nivel nacional, infraestructura y construcción, y tercero, efectividad. Y es que tengamos un entorno común de datos que nos haga disponible la información para toma de decisiones en cuestiones de política pública. Teniendo en cuenta estos 3 objetivos principales y una visión nacional general, establecimos una línea de tiempo progresiva en la que íbamos a abordar BIM de aquí al 2026 de diferentes maneras. Primero, en el 2020 hicimos algo muy importante y es generar este documento de estrategia en el que íbamos a guiar a las diferentes entidades y también generar un conocimiento colaborativo inicial. Creamos un marco técnico, creamos unas guías principales y también generamos y pedimos a nuestra entidad de normalización y CONTEC para la creación de un comité que nos permitiera nacionalizar las normas internacionales ISO. Esto se hizo en el primer año. Este año, en el 2021 que nos espera, acompañamiento a todas y cada una de las entidades para que cada una de ellas pueda definir cómo va a abordar la estrategia, cómo va a empezar a generar un esquema de gradualidad, a contratar equipos y a ver qué proyectos pueden aplicar o no para la implementación de la metodología y generar por lo menos un piloto por entidad. Eso nos va a permitir fortalecer y que cada uno de nosotros abordemos la metodología BIM en nuestra causística específica. Del 2022 al 2026 vamos con una gradualidad por medio de porcentajes. Estamos del 10 al 25, del 35 al 50, del 65 al 75 y del 85 al 100, en el que podamos para el 2026 tener el 100% de los proyectos a nivel nacional en la metodología BIM. Esta es la idea principal. ¿Esto cómo está en términos de liderazgo y gobernanza? Bueno, tenemos un gran apoyo afortunadamente por parte de la presidencia y la vicepresidencia. La presidencia por medio de la Consejería Presidencial para Tecnología y la vicepresidencia en términos de acompañamiento en el memorándum de entendimiento que se creó entre el Reino Unido y el gobierno de Colombia para crear toda esta estructura. Esto también nos generó pues un comité directivo del memorando de entendimiento propiamente, en el que estamos nosotros como las entidades principales que les mencioné, el Departamento Nacional de Planeación y un grupo de trabajo BIM principal en el que estamos las entidades públicas más fuertes liderando las diferentes líneas de trabajo. ¿Cuáles son las diferentes líneas de trabajo? Liderazgo público, en el que tenemos que tener un seguimiento y sobre todo un acompañamiento para que las otras entidades puedan realmente abordar BIM de una buena manera. Compromiso legal, y esto es porque pues necesitamos un marco legal para la contratación y ejecución de proyectos de la manera adecuada. Estándares técnicos e interoperabilidad. En este caso, nosotros como Ministerio de Vivienda somos los líderes en el que esperamos generar guías de apoyo y documentos técnicos que sirvan realmente para que las entidades empiecen a implementar BIM. Socialización. Todos sabemos que una estrategia, si no se socializa, si no se divulga y si no se dan a conocer todas las cosas que la componen, es muy difícil. Entonces está el Departamento Nacional de Planeación y construcción de capacidades o formación del capital humano, que es también otra cosa muy importante porque la industria puede solicitar mucho el capital humano, pero si este no está formado no vamos a poder responder. Entonces no es solo cuestión de pedir BIM, es cuestión de también fortalecer el capital humano para que pueda responder a las necesidades. Todo esto está horizontalizado con el compromiso del público, del privado y de la academia. Tenemos, por ejemplo, el BIM Forum por un lado, con el que estamos todos fuertemente articulados, y también tenemos una iniciativa relativamente reciente, que es el BIM Academic Forum Colombia, que es todo el equipo de instituciones académicas que se han unido para abordar también el BIM desde diferentes líneas de investigación, sea desde la transformación de currículos, como también de los resultados de sus equipos de investigación. Ahora, ¿cómo hemos abordado también la parte del marco colaborativo para que esto sea posible? Tenemos 3 niveles de adopción y aplicación de las guías y normas nacionales. La primera es que nos vamos a ceñir fuertemente por las ISO internacionales, hablando, por ejemplo, principalmente de la ISO 19650. Ya hemos lanzado la ISO 19650 a las partes 1 y 2 a través de la creación de este comité de ICONTEC. Y esto va a ser una base muy fuerte porque no va a ser la primera, nos espera la 16739 y otras ISOs que van a fortalecer nuestra capacidad a referirnos a estándares internacionales, pero también a través de guías técnicas y especificaciones como la guía de aplicación BIM o la guía de métodos y procedimientos, estándares, métodos y procedimientos, vamos a poder aterrizar todo lo que dicen las ISOs a nuestro nivel y aterrizarlo a nuestro contexto colombiano. La idea es que no nos quedemos solo con los estándares internacionales, sino que sepamos hacer un paralelo entre lo que nosotros estamos haciendo, lo que esperamos hacer y cómo vamos a abordar estas normas internacionales para lograrlo. Se empezarán y esperamos desarrollar por lo menos 4 guías al año, 4 de 6 a 6 guías al año que nos ayuden a fortalecer este conocimiento. Y también, por otro lado, de la mano de la academia y de la mano del sector privado, vamos a también generar templates o plantillas y otros recursos de soporte que nos van a ayudar a hacer mucho más concreta la aplicación. Cosas como el BEP o cosas como el EIR o el Exchange Information Requirements nos van a ayudar a generar una gran base de conocimiento. ¿Esto qué quiere decir? Que actualmente estamos trabajando en 4 áreas principales: liderazgo público, en el que vamos a fortalecer y a llevar a cabo toda la implementación; Collaborative Framework, o todo lo que tiene que ver con el marco colaborativo para adopción de estándares; socialización, vamos a lanzar nuestra página web oficial de la estrategia muy pronto y vamos a seguir formando los equipos de trabajo. Esto es lo más importante. Finalmente, lo que nos espera realmente para este año, para poder lograr los objetivos hasta el 2026, es, primero que todo, al interno de cada una de las organizaciones que manejan y se tratan de manera independiente, definir los criterios exactos a nivel organizacional para definir el tipo de proyectos que van a participar dentro de la estrategia. No todos los proyectos son aplicables. Pavimentar una calle probablemente no lo sea, pero hay tipos de proyectos que sí podemos priorizar y que vamos a poder empezar a generar como base de información de ciudades acá en Colombia. Ese es el primero. Luego también el entrenamiento y la creación de equipos de trabajo responsables de las implementaciones al interior de las organizaciones. Sabemos que la implementación de BIM no se trata solo de usar un software, sino se trata de un cambio organizacional de fondo. Y este cambio organizacional de fondo implica el crear estos equipos de trabajo que puedan responder tanto a las necesidades como a la entrega de información, que la puedan recibir y la puedan aprovechar. Y finalmente, definir y publicar los estándares comunes que son aplicables a todo el ciclo de vida del proyecto. Claro, empezamos por la 19650, seguiremos por la 16739. ¿Cuáles son las otras normas que nos aplican y cómo vamos a poder abordarlas? Esto era lo que les quería contar. Muchísimas gracias y sigan disfrutando.
Thank you, Valentina. That was really helpful to see the progress you've made in Colombia. And amongst other things, you had a real key focus on standardization and that investment in human capital skills development. So we'll talk about that as well in the Q&A session. If I could ask you to turn your cameras on, Fergus, Valentina, and Jan as well. We'll now have that discussion. Thanks for your presentations, first of all. They were really, really clear and helpful to set the scene. So first of all, we have had some questions come through in the chat. Feel free to keep sending those notes in if you're listening in. We will pick out one or two of those as we go through some discussion here with our presenters. Just to remind you, please do turn on the interpretation if you'd like to listen in a different language. So first of all, if I could ask perhaps Fergus, you mentioned about the UK's focus on outcomes, and you mentioned the value of the industrial strategy and how that was seen as pivotal in driving the adoption of BIM for those higher level outcomes around people and places. Could you just expand a little bit about what you see as the goals, the outcomes that you're trying to achieve from a national perspective by the greater introduction of BIM?
Yes, I'm very happy to do that. Really, the reason that the UK government has focused on BIM is because we want to support the delivery of better buildings and infrastructure that deliver public services that the taxpayers who pay for them use. We have been, for the last few years, really focused on trying to ensure that as many public sector contracting authorities as possible make use of BIM for the procurement of infrastructure and construction work to ensure that the asset that we invest in is going to last, it's going to perform to the specifications that we need it to perform to, and also that we have a means of ensuring that the design is as effective as possible. And we found that there have been tremendous gains for us as a construction client in terms of cost, time and certainty, and also the quality of the built asset, but also significant gains for the industry that's been using BIM technologies because it's improved its own productivity and performance as well.
Yes, so it's that win-win for public sector, value for money, better outcomes, but it's also a benefit for the private sector in terms of greater productivity, profitability, and finally for the built environment, delivering better assets. So that's really helpful, really clear. Thanks, Fergus. Jan, maybe I could ask a similar question to you. There was such a theme for Estonia through your presentation about the value of data. It's not by accident that you have this real focus on digital. Perhaps you could just talk about that and expand a little bit on the higher level outcomes that you see for Estonia from this initiative that you're driving.
Thanks, Adam, for the great question. Well, if you think about all the great benefits we could have from modern technologies, all the buzzwords, AI, VR, AR, XR, hyper automation, whatever, all of that actually as a prerequisite needs well-structured, comprehensive, understandable data. And that's why our focus is very much on enabling the flow of information without any obstacles. And when we started with the development of the e-construction platform, that really came out from the analysis that the biggest issue in the industry wasn't really about adopting this or that specific technology. It was the interoperability and the fragmented nature of our industry that really doesn't help in that sense. So that's why we focus very much on data, on making data more or less standardized, or providing ways of interpreting or using a common language whenever possible.
Yeah, yeah, that idea of a common language is something actually, Valentina, that you spoke about, that you're focusing on the idea of building that common language through standardization. Congratulations. I think it was last week that you announced the launch of the 19650 standard. So that's a real big breakthrough. I know that is something you've been involved in for a long time. Could you also talk about that then in terms of the higher level outcomes that you see from the ministry perspective, that benefit the ministry, but also benefit Colombia? You spoke a bit about skills development, for instance. Could you elaborate on this?
Claro que sí, Adam, y viene muy bien la pregunta porque me permite ahondar en otras cosas en las que estamos trabajando y, como decía Jan también en su presentación, tener unos datos estructurados nos permite tomar mejores decisiones y más inteligentes decisiones a nivel gobierno, y es al final lo que nosotros esperamos. Nosotros esperamos que BIM sea una puerta que nos permita a todos acceder a tecnologías y acceder sobre todo a datos estructurados y a una metodología de trabajo estructurada en la que podamos trabajar y entendernos como industria. La estandarización es un primer paso en muchos sentidos. La estandarización, por lo menos hablando del esquema o de cómo funciona la construcción acá en Colombia, somos un sector altamente informal, entonces tenemos que hacer grandes esfuerzos para la formalización, pero también tenemos que hacer grandes esfuerzos para todos entendernos. A ustedes les pasa, nosotros hablamos español, claro, en Colombia, pero hablamos diferentes tipos de español y a veces incluso es difícil entendernos. Entonces un primer paso es estandarizar justamente cómo hablamos respecto a la construcción, hablar de sistemas de clasificación, por ejemplo, y hablar de cómo nos acercamos a la metodología BIM y a la construcción digital en general. Entonces, cómo podemos estandarizar en todos los sentidos, tener una base común y empezar a construir desde ahí. Y eso es el primer paso, la 19650 es el primer paso, pero realmente empezamos a abordar BIM porque tendría que ser, y gracias a su enfoque colaborativo, es una primera puerta para hablar de Big Data, Data Analytics y muchas otras que nos permitan, sobre todo a nivel nacional, y ahí respondo a la segunda parte de la pregunta, tomar decisiones. Todo se trata de tomar decisiones y de que todos la utilicemos. Por ejemplo, estamos trabajando también en otro sistema que se llama el Sistema Terra desde el Ministerio de Vivienda, en el que esperamos digitalizar todo el proceso de licenciamiento de construcción y empezar a crear ciudades digitales y empezar a crear grandes bases de datos que nos permitan usar BIM para revisar proyectos, sí, pero también para tomar decisiones sobre la ciudad concretamente.
Gracias, Valentina. That again gives that broader view, doesn't it, as to why we're doing this. It sets the scene as to how important it is, not only from a built environment perspective, but this is about people, and it's about improving the skills for people as well, and providing that common language as a bridge. Thank you. Valentina, if I could stay with you, there's been a couple of really good questions come in through the chat as well. I don't know if you're able to see those, but I'll read out one or two. So Valentina, this is a question for you. You mentioned about the roadmap, the BIM mandate for 2026. The question here is about how do you foresee that training across the public sector? So you spoke about the commonality in providing a common language for the private sector and public sector. How do you see that training occur? And also the question refers specifically to how small municipalities can be included into that kind of broader picture. In fact, it was something that Fergus touched on, of course, as well, because a lot of spending goes through, I think in the UK, 26 billion pounds is through the local municipalities. So Valentina, just to clarify, the question is, how do you see the training aspect rolling out? How do you see that across both public sector and private sector? And how do you see small municipalities being incorporated into that broader vision?
Ok, bueno, acá acá tenemos que ver la formación y el fortalecimiento de las capacidades desde dos puntos de vista, claramente desde el sector público, como tú lo mencionas, Adam, pero también desde la necesidad presentada del sector público y del sector privado hacia la fuerza de trabajo o la capacidad laboral. Para eso tenemos dos líneas de trabajo. La primera línea de trabajo en la que, con la ayuda de CDBD, de Mott MacDonald y del Memorando de Entendimiento, estamos generando talleres de transformación organizacional para que las organizaciones y las entidades públicas puedan recibir información BIM, manejarla y hacer una transformación real. O sea, ese es un primer paso a nivel grande. También tenemos la FDN acá en Colombia, que va a encargarse de hacer una réplica de estos talleres a nivel organizacional, entidad, y a nivel también municipal, en el que queremos llegar justamente con mucho más detalle. Por otro lado, también tenemos esta capacitación del capital humano, en el que estamos reuniéndonos también con el SENA, que es el Servicio Nacional de Aprendizaje acá en Colombia, y en el que ellos están presentando una gama de cursos que nos permiten atender diferentes necesidades. Claro, una cosa es estar en obra, ser maestro de obra y ver un modelo y saberlo analizar y saberlo utilizar para construir un edificio, y otra cosa es, por ejemplo, el que crea el modelo BIM y el que construye digitalmente. Entonces estamos atendiendo a diferentes como sectores por ese lado. Y por otro lado, también estamos trabajando muy fuertemente en la iniciativa ya a nivel institucional educativo. Yo les mencioné en la presentación del BIM Academic Forum, y el BIM Academic Forum es una iniciativa bien interesante que las universidades tomaron la iniciativa y crearon esta unión de universidades, y están tocando diferentes temas. ¿Qué pasa si empezamos a cambiar el currículo, por ejemplo, desde una actualización que se hizo también desde el Marco Nacional de Cualificaciones, y empezamos a generar nuevos programas de formación que permitan responder a las necesidades de la estrategia 1 y del mercado también, porque el mercado se está dirigiendo hacia la digitalización? Entonces, el BIM Academic Forum es el centro de esta iniciativa académica. Y hablando de las municipalidades concretamente, también tenemos un programa, hablando de licenciamiento urbano, en el que, de la mano de Camacol, que es la Cámara Colombiana de Construcción, creamos un programa de formación para transformación del proceso de licenciamiento, transformación organizacional de los encargados del proceso de licenciamiento urbano. Antes acá el licenciamiento urbano se hacía en papel, antes, y les digo, hace menos de un año, se hacía completamente en papel, y ahora lo que queremos es empezar a digitalizarlo, pero la digitalización, ustedes saben, pues no pasa de un día para otro. Entonces queremos y creamos este curso de transformación organizacional, en el que además nos cogemos de usar BIM como fuente de información y usar los insumos digitales para la toma de decisión. Este curso está habilitado también para las secretarías de planeación que están en los pequeños municipios, y dentro de esos pequeños municipios vamos a generar también un acompañamiento desde la mesa. Son muchos frentes que hay que tocar. El esfuerzo al 2026 es osado, pero es algo a lo que realmente le estamos apostando para la transformación digital del país.
Great, thanks, Valentina. Yeah, you have a very strong partnership with industry, including Camacol, as you mentioned, and the BIM Academic Forum, which is a real strength. Maybe I could return to Jan and to perhaps first Fergus on a related question about innovation. And it's to do with it's in relation to divergent approaches and areas of collaboration across different countries around the world, and your thoughts on the value or the tension, as it's placed in the question here, from someone who's worked in the Middle East, who's worked in Europe. I think they've worked in Estonia as well, Jan. And their question is really around how much we can do in terms of alignment and commonality to help the process, the BIM process, across different countries, and how much divergence there is, there is, and how helpful that is. Maybe if I could ask Fergus, first of all, just to reflect on this idea of innovation, and try to create some commonality. And maybe that then Jan, to you in a moment.
I think an element of competition is useful, but it has to be the right kind of competition. And by that, what I mean is competition in terms of people exploring new ways of using BIM, deploying it in new subsectors of construction or infrastructure, different types of environment, or looking at how they can further develop the potential of the technology and use this more effectively. And for example, in the UK, we've got a firm that's been doing some work with a university on how you can link BIM technologies with technologies that also assess the cost and the carbon impact of a design of a building that you're developing. So you're actually exploring the frontiers of the technology and potentially coming up with something that's a really helpful development that would really transform the ability of people who are looking to invest in infrastructure to take informed decisions. But I think equally what we want to avoid is the wrong kind of competition, which drives either waste or unnecessary competition and actually creates barriers to the uptake of the technology. And what I mean by that are, for example, where you have a situation where people are developing BIM technologies without a basic level of interoperability, and it becomes difficult to transfer data between different BIM programs. And that's the reason why I think it's important that you do have some basic rules or approaches that you try and get people to follow, like the ISO 19650 standard. And I also think it's important that we do embed a few principles in this, because the last thing that we want is actually people trying to compete on the basis of doing things like hoarding the data that their BIM program or the software that they use gathers. And effectively, you in order to get access to that, you have to use a certain type of software or be part of a particular network. We need to make sure that looking to the future, data is seen as a resource that exists for the public good. So again, I mean, let's embed some basic principles at the outset in relation to this, and then encourage the right kind of competition, which is to push forward the frontiers of the technology and explore new uses for it.
That's really, really clear answer. Thanks, Fergus. So it's about providing that common basis of understanding from which you can then drive innovation. Although divergence has been helpful, as you said, to create new technologies and new solutions to difficult problems. Really, really helpful. Jan, could I ask you the same question, that sort of tension between divergence and innovation?
Well, I think Fergus had a really good reply on that, and I agree with most everything he said. And I'm not going to repeat that, but what I'm thinking about when I see maybe slightly different approaches, some divergence, then, well, that's only natural, because, you know, our communities are different, you know, the regions are different, the history is different, etc. And there will always be room for, you know, customization, for something specific, something maybe slightly different from the other. But the key is to have the same foundation, the underlying principles, so we can at least on the basic level understand each other, exchange data, etc., etc. And you know what we're trying to do in Estonia with, again, the construction platform is to enable better information exchange. And I think with this Global BIM Summit is a really good way of, you know, having a more global approach. And whenever you take it to a higher level, especially when you're talking about a global level, then you really have to start simplifying the message and simplifying the aspect that we're trying to kind of standardize or have in common, because you will never have a very complex thing that everybody will see as exactly the same, but the core part of it can be the same.
Yes, so it's getting that balance right, isn't it, between what's core, and there's a sort of invisible line over which you don't want to sort of interfere too much and create too much standardization, which potentially handcuffs people and restricts and ties things down too much. So there's a balance there, isn't there? A fine balance. Jan, there was a technical question for you as well. Did you see that on the chat? There was a question about the interaction, I think it was between, I'm just trying to find it myself now, between CCI and
Yes.
Unit Class, I think. Did you want to just comment on?
Yeah, the difference between Unit Class and CCI, they're of course both construction classification systems, but Unit Class is maybe more established, a more traditional hierarchical classification system, as opposed to CCI, which is a more multi-dimensional approach. And to illustrate this, you can think about, for example, in Unit Class, you have 44 different notations for a door. But in CCI, there is only one door because it's a type of construction element. It has one code, but it has lots of properties and values. So we're adding, different dimensions and combining them. And in that way, we can simplify the amount of notations, amount of elements we actually have in the table. And another key difference is the reference designation system, which makes CCI maybe a bit more complex to comprehend at first. But as we are, what we were looking for from a classification system is that it would be suitable for machines to read, and we could incorporate maybe more information than from traditional classification systems. And the reference designation system is exactly that. You can also not only tell which system the door belongs to, what it is, you can also identify from the classification code the location of that door within a complex, within a building. So yeah, those are maybe the two key important differences when we look at Unit Class and CCI.
Good. Understood. Thanks for that. Just on a different topic now, again, coming back to the chat questions that have come through. In particular, there was one which was interesting as it spoke about Valentina's point, which was how do you transfer from a national level idea to a ministry level implementation to projects. Maybe Fergus, perhaps you first, and maybe Valentina, if you could also respond to this question about what are some of the lessons that you've observed or can think relevant to share with other governments in other parts of the world that have been helpful in terms of how the UK and how Colombia is starting to, and Jan, maybe you've got some good experience on this as well. How do you learn lessons and implement into public projects BIM as a methodology?
Well, it's interesting because the UK has done this in two ways at different levels. At the national level, we were very directional through the creation of the BIM mandate, but at local level, it's been very much bottom up, and we've worked with willing local authorities that have wanted to do this, and it's been a conscious positive choice on their part. And I think there are advantages and disadvantages to both approaches. I think the directive approach certainly worked very well in terms of requiring people to invest resources and creating the critical mass that you need to support an initiative and implement it successfully quite quickly. But I think the downside of that is that it doesn't necessarily win hearts and minds. You don't necessarily have a committed group of people who want to use the technology because they see its potential and they believe that it can help them do their jobs better and deliver better public services. People tend to see it as an imposition and something that they have to comply with. So actually, there are some benefits to the approach that we've adopted with local authorities, which has really been about trying to persuade them to adopt BIM technologies. And it's involved an awful lot of dialogue with them. The provision of training, the provision of other technical resources, encouraging the formation of networks and groups where people can exchange information and discuss their experiences, and actually having to put some resources into actively managing the creation and maintenance of a network like that. But I think perhaps in the longer term, that's a more successful approach, because it does mean that you get people who I think are much more committed to the implementation of BIM and who see this as what it is, which is something that is potentially transformational and something that helps us create a better environment with better public services.
Ownership is incredibly important, isn't it? A sense that we all participate and own the implementation of something, and that it's not something that's just done to an extent. So it's a very good thought. Maybe Valentina and Jan, we could sort of get your thoughts around this last point, which is to do with the role of government and how you see the role of government helping and working with industry. Because Valentina, you spoke very clearly about the interaction that you've had with industry, and Jan, you mentioned it in your presentation earlier as well. Could you just reflect, Valentina, first on this question of the role of the public sector to help this digital transformation move forwards?
Sí, y un poco complementando también lo que dijo Fergus ahorita, es importante que efectivamente las personas y las entidades sobre todo se apropien de la metodología y sepan qué hacer con ella. En nuestro caso, y por esto también viene una unión con la industria y con la academia. En nuestro caso, la industria fue la primera en usar BIM y en impulsar el uso de BIM, pero esto también llevó a una comprensión de que BIM era un software. Y en el proceso de usar un software dentro de las entidades y el afán de hacer todo mucho más eficiente y mucho más rápido, se generó muy rápidamente una decepción respecto a lo que entonces no era entendido como una metodología, sino justamente como un software. Entonces, el hecho de nosotros como Estado poder sobre todo articularnos es un papel muy importante que tenemos que empezar a jugar. No solo hablar de claramente un establecimiento normativo y el establecimiento también de una estrategia, sino el poder hablar con todos los actores y llegar a comunes acuerdos para que justamente la normativa o cualquier directiva e iniciativa que salga de las necesidades del mercado y de las necesidades también de la academia y responda todo adecuadamente. Si todos nos logramos articular adecuadamente desde el liderazgo público, yo creo que las decisiones y todos son muchísimo más fáciles de tomar y van mucho mejor direccionadas sobre todo.
Perfectly clear. Thank you, Valentina. So that was, yeah, so the role of government there is about catalyzing, about encouraging and clarifying that common basis, that framework, that foundation of moving it forward. Jan, is there anything you'd like to add to that perspective?
Yeah, maybe just to emphasize that you know, the industry and the local authorities and all the stakeholders involved, they don't need BIM as such, but they need the benefits provided by BIM. And that's why from the national government level, we are trying to provide those benefits. For example, like the BIM-based building permits, where you get tangible results by having a faster, more efficient, more a process that delivers better quality. And the stakeholders need to see those benefits. They need to understand them. And one of the reasons why we, for example, haven't also really established any mandates or enforced the use of BIM in Estonia is because we want it to occur more naturally. And from the industry side, we're working very closely with the industry, with the designers, with the contractors who are already using BIM, and for them it's natural. And you see that in the industry, I don't know any case in the world where somebody has gone back to not using BIM, because it's, once you go BIM, you never go back. But you have to kind of provide this benefit to those who are maybe not fully involved in the process, and maybe from time to time touch upon it. For example, like the local authorities with their building permits. But if we provide automated checks, automated controls, based on BIM models, they see, well, wow, I can save a lot of time. And it also raises the quality of the applications that I receive, because all of these checks can be done beforehand, and you can really remove a lot of noise, a lot of waste in the communication.
Yes, it's part of playing that leadership role that you described, trying to provide a signal and encouragement to the industry as well. So yeah, really clear. Thanks, Jan. That was really a good way to finish, I think, in terms of our discussion here. So I want to thank you all. Valentina, Fergus, thank you very much. Jan, thank you. Really been good to see you and hear your presentation and discuss your thoughts. Thank you for listening to our session and contributing on the chat. Remember that this is the first of 4 webinars. Feel free to join if you haven't already, and register for the other webinars in this series. There's one tomorrow, same time, and next Wednesday and Thursday. Of course, all of this is building up to the Global BIM Summit on the 17th, where we will be talking more about this global collaboration of governments and launching the Global BIM Network. So we look forward to seeing you there. Thank you very much for your time. Again, thank you to our speakers, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Thank you.